Cool. Cool. Hi everyone. Thanks so much for joining us this evening. So, if this is your first time coming to a meetup, basically, Adrian and I host the Financial Modelling Meetup. So we have a meetup once every few months. There's no real set timeline, and we've had some really interesting speakers in the past. We've had Dave Teron, who was one of the first financial modelers in South Africa. He started financial modelling on punch cards. Adrian's given a talk, I've given a talk on project finance, which is, that's where I work. So I work at R&B, an infrastructure finance team. So project finance, we finance things like Gautrain was us, and wind farms and solar farms. N3 Toll Road was one of our projects as well. So that's the sort of modeling that I do, which is obviously very different to your typical company financial model and forecast. And then this evening, we're very lucky to have Lance, who's visiting from Australia on his Future of Financial Modeling World Tour. I'll let Lance introduce himself, but basically, Lance, even though he's a CA, I think he's more of an engineer than a CA. He's automated a number of his own roles, and he really is going to speak up tonight about the future of financial modeling, which I think is awesome. I think that financial modeling, even though it's progressed a lot, especially from Dave's days on punch cards, and he said he could only run, if they wanted to do a scenario analysis, they had to do it from 12 o'clock at night till 8 o'clock in the morning, because that's when they could get access to the mainframe. Obviously now it's a lot easier to do that, but I still think some financial modeling is becoming a little bit stale, and I think there's a lot of room for automation, especially when it comes to building financial models. It comes to things like reducing the number of errors in financial models, etc. So hopefully Lance is going to speak a little bit about that, and a little bit also about the visual aspect of financial models. Obviously people are very visual, so having a look at financial models from a visual perspective and dashboards, etc. is also a topic that I really like. Yeah, so over to Lance.
Thank you. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, everyone, and thanks R&B for this nice little cozy theatre we've got. Basically background, you can hear I'm South African. I was born and bred. I'm a CA, although I'm not fully registered with the CASA. I'm a chartered accountant of New Zealand and Australia. And I've worked 20 years in corporate across, some of these names I've got to be careful what I say now in the room. PwC, Investec Bank, which is where I learned a lot of my financial modelling, National Australia Bank, and I do admit that when I left, I did spend a bit of time at KPMG in Australia, but not in South Africa. But in the financial modelling team. So one of the things that I struggled with was actually building a business. I run my own business called Model Citizen. I'm also the group CFO for SQL CFO, which is the world's first franchise business model for virtual CFOs. I look after analytics and modeling for that group, and I train the CFOs in the group. I'm also the CFO of a fintech startup called Banjo, and I'm a partner of the Outperformer, where we deliver financial modeling training and programs for finance transformation. So most people have one job, I've got four. And the reason that is because of the technology and the way that I've scaled myself by doing and implementing some of the things I'll talk about tonight, which I think people are sort of a bit scared of technology, but there's actually a huge opportunity, and I'm living proof of that opportunity. I was in India 2 months ago, Sri Lanka about 4 months ago. I'm going back to India in 2 months' time, and so doing a world tour on something that I'm passionate about is awesome. So I think that's something that you've got to look at and embrace, because you get to decide where you invest that time and how you invest that time, and so we'll talk about that. So in most presentations, you'll get told to turn your phones off, right? But straight away, you're going to start seeing some stuff that's different. Oh, by the way, I'm also an approved trainer for the FMI, which is the Financial Modelling Institute. Has anyone heard of the FMI? Yeah, a couple. So the FMI was created from the founders of Modeloff. Has anyone heard of Modeloff? Right? So the Modeloff is the World Financial Modelling Championships. If you want to learn how to build very different models, and even snakes and ladders, which I did. I also built one of the solutions, precise debt modeling. They're free models, go online, you can practice, you can register. So the FMI are trying to create an official accreditation in financial modeling. So I'll talk about a little bit that at the end. So we're going to start with grabbing your phones. So what I'd like you to do is actually go to www.zeetings.com/model citizen. Sorry, I dropped.
If you want to connect to the Wi-Fi, there is Wi-Fi available.
But we will ask you to turn that off later because we're going to need it.
Okay.
But you can use it now.
So the Wi-Fi that you should be able to connect to is FNB Wi-Fi, all in caps. And that's an open Wi-Fi, which should work for you.
I missed the website.
Zeetings.com, so meetings with a Z /model citizen. So there it is. Zeetings.com /model citizen, no E in citizen. So you should have the ABC sign, the good old has everyone got that? Yeah, more fair? More fair? Okay, watch your phones. No longer. Okay, so what I want you all to do is to look at the screen and think about some of these questions. So straight away, you're going to start seeing stuff tonight that you just wouldn't have seen before. So we're going to make this interactive. What I'd like to do is actually go through some of these questions and talk about some of these topics that many people don't want to talk about. The topics that people are afraid of. So I think one of the opportunities, and I'll talk about some of the results as well. That this has been done. This poll I've done now to almost 500 people around the world, so there's only been 4 people that have responded. Are there more people that have? Has everyone been able to find it? No? So zeetings.com /model citizen. I'll leave it up for a sec. So one of the things that people are afraid of is embracing some of this technology, because a lot of what we do in accounting and finance is very much driven by those activities of production, of producing numbers, of producing reports. So the fact that we're going to embrace technology that automates that is scary, because what are we replacing it with? What are we going to do instead? And I think the key thing to remember is there's the skill set called financial modeling and analytics. Both of these are 2 very big skill sets in their own rights. Now, as accountants, we didn't even have Excel at university. We were never taught how to build models. So there's actually a huge skills gap in the financial modeling space and also the analytics space. Of course, we're not going to talk too much about analytics. I'll touch on it, but we're going to focus more on financial modeling. And so there is an opportunity to go in. Now, financial modeling is not just about Excel, and I'll talk about that as well. It's far more than that. Has everyone got that website now?
Well, it's my phone that's
Okay, 13 responses, great. Yeah, so look, this is true. And why is this true? Because for those that don't change, you're going to have that. In Melbourne, you wouldn't believe it, but when Uber came along, don't copy because I said that. But, there's no right answer, by the way. It's all individual. When Uber came into Australia, there was a taxi revolt. Like there was literally protests. People going people were just pushing back. You'd never see Australians react so bad. I thought I was in South Africa with the protesting that was going on, because they could see the impact of that technology and what it was going to do to their jobs. there is a risk if you want to keep on doing management reporting and producing, copying and pasting data from one spreadsheet to another, and that's all you do every day of the week, and that's boring for me, but most people enjoy that. You need to change, because that's going to change. Next question. What's stopping you from automating repetitive tasks you do today? I think these things are really important, because a lot of people are wanting to do this. They're wanting to create capacity, but bang, they don't have the right tools, right? No one, let alone being able to use Excel well. VBA is historically been the way of automation, but VBA has its own issues. VBA, if it's not written correctly, it's too complex, it's not transparent, you're then talking code. So there's a whole lot of other issues. So now you have technologies called RPA. Has anyone heard of the term RPA? Yeah? Robotic Process Automation. So RPA is the new term. VBA was the old term. They've just rebadged it. But there's actually technologies like Blue Prism, UiPath, Automate Anywhere, that basically take keystrokes and record actions of humans and automate. So those things are here now. And the only reason why we're not doing it is because obviously people are afraid. Even if I wanted to use it, I'm unsure how to go about the automation. Sort of the same thing. Honestly, why would I do that? I've got some of that. I'm fearful of management. I did this poll with the Auditor General in Australia with about 150 public accountants, and this came up, right? So the Auditor General's face dropped, because of course, management, you have to trust management will reinvest that saved capacity into skills like financial modeling and analytics, because otherwise it's just a cost play, and then why would you do it? So that's the other resistance of why we don't invest time to discover these tools. We don't invest in the skills that we need to do that, because we're fearful of management and we're fearful of what we're going to do in our jobs, because it changes so much. 19 responses, that's great. What are you doing about the next wave of innovation in finance? Be careful how you answer this question. It's a bit personal. But anyway, these things are sort of interesting to discuss, because a lot of people, either sticking their heads in the sand. D comes up a lot. I need to do something, I'm just not sure where to start. There is so much information, misinformation, technology, RPA, APIs, AI, machine learning, robotics. What does it all mean? I'm just using Excel. What does this mean to me? What does this mean to my role, my career, my job, my life? These things are really, issues that we've got to face into and deal with. Yes, finally. It's probably the only presentation I've ever done where financial modeling is ahead of analytics, but normally it's the other way around. And the reason for that is marketing. You look anywhere on LinkedIn, you look everywhere else, it's all about analytics. Analytics, data analytics, big data. Uber is based on analytics, right? Uber doesn't have a lot of modeling, it's more around surging, and they've built data, big data and data regions. So obviously the tech people don't need to talk to finance to innovate. They just go and do it. That's why analytics is so much further ahead than financial modeling, because financial modeling needs finance, and we're resistant to change. Okay. Now, this is quite important as well in terms of offshoring. So let's look at what's happened over the last 5 to 10 years, particularly in places like Australia, the US, where a lot of the tasks are not necessarily automated, but they're offshored to places like India or the Philippines, somewhere else where the labor cost is a lot cheaper. And so a lot of people, either don't do it properly so that it fails because it's job preservation. Why would I give, so whether a robot is doing it, or code, or RPA, or someone else in another country, it's still the same problem. It's still my job's under threat. And so that's why you don't have a lot of people in the US, because they either haven't done it, they don't want to do it, and that's a risk. So, that's something again that we've got to face into. So all these innovative tools and technologies are there, but we've got to embrace it and change. Okay, hopefully after this, you're going to start thinking about some of the stuff if you haven't already. In fact, the fact that you're here, you're probably thinking about it anyway. What does it mean for your career? And I think that's probably the hardest thing for people to face into, saying, yes, but you know, what's going to happen to my job? I've been an accountant, I've been closing the books, I've been preparing management accounts. That's all I've ever done for the last 5, 10, 15 years. And now you're going to tell me that's all going to go away. What do I do? So I think that's quite important. And in some cases, that percentage is quite high. And I think that's, again, another challenge to really look at it and what does that mean for us in our roles. Now, who knows what a word cloud is? Anyone know what a word cloud is? On your phone, I want you to type in the first word that comes to mind when you think of finance, innovation, and disruption. One word. The bigger the word, don't look at the screen, don't copy, just the first word that comes to your mind, type it in. And let's see what comes in, right? The bigger the word, the more people have voted. Nice, opportunity. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Great. This one comes up a lot. Change. Yeah, really, really obvious, of course, but and it's not just change for change's sake, and it's not just external change. It's actually mindset change. It's actually change within yourself. I've been on many podcasts, and I was on one recently, and one of the things that I got asked was, you know, what are the personal things that I've had to face into? I hated English speeches. Of everything I did at school, English speeches was my worst. I hated standing up in front of the class. My heart used to jump out of my chest. I couldn't talk. I used to sweaty palms. I used to stutter. I couldn't even breathe. Now, it's completely the opposite. Why? Because I had to change. I realized that as a leader or as someone who's in, you know, want to get out and build a brand, I had to step out of my comfort zone. And so that we've got to do that as well. We've got to do, if we want to have better lives and not do the same copying and pasting every month and actually enjoy life, we've got to change. We've got to embrace finance business partnering and adding more value and looking forward, not looking back, and all these other concepts that, you know, is really what underpins the future of financial modeling and the work that we're doing. Change, automation, that's great. Cloud, that's machine learning, fintech, yeah, absolutely. So all these concepts definitely touch on all of those, but you can see change comes up pretty much, you know, all the time. Alrighty, thanks for that. So I've spoken about a few things here around change. So let's look at change. And look, someone says I am a futurist. I don't consider myself a futurist, but the fact that I'm talking about the future of financial modeling sort of implies that I am. So when I started doing this, I thought, well, hang on, I can't stand in front of people and talk about the future if I haven't actually assessed the past. So I'm not saying that you don't look at the past, but you don't get drained in the past. But you've got to look at the past. You've got to look at where we are going and what's happened in our lives, and start looking at those concepts and those sort of trends and start applying that to financial modeling. So that's what I've done here. So websites. Who's built a website before? A couple of you. Yeah, that's great. So what, 10, 15 years ago, if you wanted to build a website, manual HTML coding. And maybe you had front page, for those of you that remember. Maybe you had GeoCities. And if you got caught like me back in the day, you had Skybiz, which was a multi-level marketing scheme which was going to change the world and make you a whole lot of money, and obviously lost a lot of that. Now if you want to build a website, you don't need to go pay a whole lot of money because you have a CMS, a content management system. You have Wix, you have Squarespace, you have WordPress. These are technologies that exist right now. You can go on my own website, I've built myself. I've built many websites. I was also a martial arts instructor up until 2 years ago when I started my business. And I built my own website on Wix. And yes, I copy other people's code and I do that. I don't do any coding. So what this concept is, it's highly technical to self-serve. So you've got to understand that highly technical skills like law, like medicine, like accounting, are going to go to self-serve. There's no question about it. It's already happening. Think about taxi drivers. You know, you had to go get taxi license. In Australia, you had to buy for $250,000, 2.5 million rand. You had to go buy a taxi plate, right, to qualify as a taxi driver. You know, one day Uber arrives. Anyone can be a taxi driver. You need an app, and and your car needs to be no more than 2 years old, and you need to have a driver's license. You didn't even have to have insurance, right? Suddenly, you could be a self-service gig economist, you know, running your own business. Taxi bookings, hailing a cab, you know, back then, that's how you used to use transport. Now, what do? Uber, rideshare, and even since I've written that, there's now Ola cabs, there's a whole range of others. And the taxi industry itself, 13 Cabs, which is the Australian sort of dominant cab industry, actually had to innovate. They had to provide the same customer service that Uber was doing about who's arriving, where am I coming, you know, so you can have that visual interaction. They had to innovate, right? And this is all about the sharing economy, right? So one of the benefits of all these apps, I don't know if any of you have heard this before, but what's the largest media company in the world? Did everyone hear that? Facebook. The largest media company in the world doesn't create content. What's the largest accommodation hospitality group in the world? Right. And how many properties do they own? 0. Right? So how is it that the two largest accommodation hospitality groups, you know, and you know, Uber as well, it's all about the sharing economy. So the entire business model is changing. Facebook's completely changing. Facebook's now got a lot to answer for all the fake news that's happening, right? So it's sort of changing our lives. It's changing politics. You look at Egypt and what happened there. You look at Trump and that's another disaster. Okay, large data. What do we used to do? You know, pivot tables, access, query writing, SQL. We were talking earlier about if you wanted to get data, you had to be, you know, you had to sort of get data manually or punch cards or, you know, like it was bloody hard. Now you've got data visualization, you've got Power BI, you know, you've got ClickView, you've got Tableau, you know, you've got a whole range of, you know, there's Domo, you know, there's so many, but this is all about visualization of data and the ease at which you use the data. That's important, because now it's easier to get access to it and it's easier to visualize it. And that's important because why? Decisions are made on data. Finance is all about data. So if we get access to that easier, then of course that's important. Sorry, you probably can't see here. Manual paper-based bookkeeping. When I did accounting at school, and even when I did it at university, I had my T ledgers, T accounts, right? You had to balance your books, and I think I had, was it 3 or 4 paper books? One was the double column, triple column, T, and I can't even remember all of them, but you know, everything was written on paper, right? Now you've got API connected cloud-based accounting. API. Does everyone know, or who knows, put up your hands if you don't know what an API is. Yep, okay. API, application protocol interface, right? An API is a mechanism by which computers communicate with each other. Now people who put up their hands never heard about it, but I can virtually guarantee that you've used one, right? You've seen The Matrix with Keanu Reeves, right? The Matrix is here. People are using technology they don't even know about. How many of you who put your hands up have used your Facebook or your Google login to log into another app? Yeah? Yes? Guess what? You've just used an API. You've authorized that app to rely on your identification via Google or Facebook to say, this person is who they are. Carol is who she is, and I'm going to let her log into this app. That's an API. It allows computers to talk to each other, of course without permission. Right? Cloud-based accounting is allowing bank feeds to be fed directly from the bank into our accounting package with automated rules. Guess what? They've just gamified the bank rec. You can literally do a bank rec on your phone. Daily reconciliation, click, click, click. This expense goes here, you crash code it. You're not matching, you know when you turn up the cards and you match? Yeah? It's kind of like that. They've gamified bank reconciliations. Who thought they could ever gamify bank reconciliations? That's what that's doing. So this is all about quicker and real-time reporting. White pages, yellow pages, you wanted an answer. What do we do now? Google it. Of course, everyone does. So it's about getting answers now. So these concepts are really important when I try to formulate what's going to happen in the future, in particular to financial modeling. So I'll throw open this question and love to hear some thoughts. What are your plans now into the future? What's happening around us? What are some of the things that you're doing? Is anyone doing any of this stuff? Is anyone looking into?
Yeah. Yeah, so very much a lot of this resonates with me. So I'm from the hectic data analytics space and also the data science side, so the machine learning AI application of this. And everything that you're saying is incredibly relevant, and it's a fast changing world. It's exciting. I think it's exciting. But one of the biggest things that a lot of people fear change, I think that it's going to augment a lot of decision making at the end of the day. It should never replace, it should complement.
Absolutely. So make no mistake, the machine on its own is not the answer. The machine plus the human is the answer. We will always have a role, but that role is very different to what it is today. Okay, so that's really, really important. In fact, I think I said that in your podcast. We spoke about that on Matt's. In fact, if you don't know already, tune into Matt's global podcast on financial modeling, where he talks about AI and other things. Anyone else? Thanks for that. I had this question in Melbourne, and someone put up their hand and they said Power Query is the best thing that was ever invented of late in terms of Excel, in terms of getting information, querying data, pulling it in. Basically, Power Query avoids you writing VBA code. Right? Power Query and Power Pivot are the backbone of Power BI, which again comes back to the analytics side. Okay, so let's take those concepts and now let's apply it to finance and financial modeling. So highly technical to self-serve. Finance and financial modeling typically sat within the investment banks, corporate finance, where I came from, where Matt works. That's where we got exposure to financial modeling. Financial modeling in the future is going to be greater automation with aspects of AI as well. And definitely people are going to be able to build models much quicker. So in the course that I'm running next week, we actually show how you can build a fully integrated three-way model in a matter of minutes. Does anyone know what a three-way model is? Okay, who doesn't know what a three-way model is? Okay, there's three financial statements: income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow. Okay, you connect all those together in the same file, connected, and you have what's called a three-way model, or a three-phase model. Another question: of those three financial statements, if I'm the modeler, which one for me is the most important? So let me phrase that again, or just listen carefully. I'm the modeler, I'm building the model. Of the three statements, income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow, which is the most important for me as the modeler? Not for the person using the model, but for me as the modeler. See, straight away there was two different answers. Cash flow? Income statement? No, one. One. There's one. Why? The answer's right, by the way, but why? Correct. If your balance sheet doesn't balance, how do you know your income statement and your cash flow are correct? You don't. You need double entry. Right? Most people don't know that. So everyone builds financial models on P&L. Profit is not cash. Revenue is vanity. Profit is sanity. But cash is king. Everyone wants cash. Cash flow. How can you build a proper cash flow if you don't understand working capital and the flow of cash? Adrian and I had a long discussion the other day around, when you're building a model, and he suggests starting with cash. And absolutely, if you're communicating to, that's why I said, be careful who you're talking to. If you're talking to the business, they don't want to talk about balance sheet. They want to talk about cash flow. When you're starting a business, and when you're doing an infrastructure project, cash flow is the most important. So if you outward looking in terms of delivery, they want to know about the cash. But you don't know if the cash is robust unless you've done your working capital and your debtors and creditors correctly. Okay. The sharing economy. There's limited amount of data sharing. You've got multiple systems, you've got copying and pasting. Guess what? We spoke about APIs and connectivity and portability of data across systems. So now you can suddenly have the ability to not only share data, but share models. So one of the technologies that I use in Model Citizen and train people on is Medano. It's the world's first content management system for Excel. You can reuse pieces of your spreadsheet with other people in your team and reconnect it and audit it with a few buttons. And so the ability there is that you don't have to everyone build the same logic. You've got 5 different divisions, and all those different divisions are setting product A at this cost, with this price, with a volume. Tweak that, change it, and then why doesn't someone else have to do the same thing? That's what's happening today. Everyone builds their own. There's no consistency in financial modeling. This brings about not only consistency, but integrity. And that's the thing that Matt was referring to around, we've got a long way to improve. These are the things that need to be fixed for financial modeling really to be embraced as mainstream. The technology is actually here to do that. We just have to embrace it. Visualization is of data. So we spoke about dashboards, Power BI, Tableau. That's now, right? What we're talking about now is more self-service, live interaction, right? So you have that in data analytics. You have Power Apps with Power BI. You can take, has anyone heard of or played with Power BI before? Right, a few of you. So you can take data, visualize it, spin it up as what they call a Power App, and someone can log into that. And they can actually, the client or your customer or your internal customer can actually play with it on their phone. So that exists now. Because analytics is a little bit ahead of financial modeling. Financial modeling doesn't have that. I'm going to show you some technology that shows you a bit of that interactivity that's live, that doesn't see Excel. Excel's in the background. It's your engine, but it's, you want to drive, the people that you're serving want to drive the car. You're the mechanic. You're not the driver. They're the driver. You want to give them the ability to drive. You don't get the driver sticking his hand in the engine to pull the accelerator cable. You're sitting in the driver's seat. That's the sort of technology that we need to embrace. Quicker, real time. We said, finance and financial modeling, growing of cloud. Some of the models that we do are connected to the cloud. They're rolling, dynamic every single month. The automation. The part of my own role at Banjo, which I automated, was as a result of being able to do that. The month-end process took me literally 5 minutes to update the model, pull the data, and roll the entire model. And then it's just a matter of focusing on looking forward. Because the history is set, and then I've got back testing to check out how bad I was at modeling. Quick and real time, growing in cloud. IoT, Internet of Things, has everyone heard of that? It's gone a bit quiet on the IoT front. And obviously it was the biggest hype. These are intelligent devices attached to things like equipment and when it was needing to be replaced. And I don't know how many people have bought an intelligent fridge that orders milk when it's empty, but it never took off. But anyway, there's going to be more and more. And the reason it never took off is because there's no integration of all this data. So these IoT devices are creating this data, but we don't have the portability of all that data to actually use it, apply it, get insight, and make better decisions. And that's the point. If you're not using the data to make better decisions, what's the point? What's the use of it? It becomes useless. Answers now. So there's some advisory gaps that still exist in the financial modeling space. There's still an opportunity to actually use that in finance, but more advisory gaps have been created through the creation of what they call the virtual CFO. I don't really like the term virtual CFO because anything virtual means you're not there or you've got virtual goggles. And CFO for a small business says you're expensive. So who wants to buy something that's expensive and you never see? No one. Right? So it's a bad term, but that's what the industry Zero actually created the term. So we at SQL we like to call it the financial mentor. You have your bookkeeper, you have your accountant, but you want someone to help you look forward. Okay, so Don't forget about financial modeling. Right? So all these things and all these trends are great, but what's happening, right? Businesses are all different. Even the same businesses, even same sector, will have different logic. I built a model at National Australia Bank for one division that was writing loans, personal loans. Another division was writing business loans. Another division had credit card loans. It's loans. Accounting treatment is the same. Accrued interest, effective yield. You have everything there. But the one division did their growth rates based on the percentage of loans written, in terms of last year's loans and the percentage growth rate. And the other division said, no, we have personal loans, we have applications that come through. Part of those applications get approved, and there's an average amount that gets drawn. So the logic there has got nothing to do with the past. It's actually got to do with understanding the flow of that. What's the value driver? What's driving the volume? Same divisions, both writing loans, very different logic. So you need to be able to understand that. Business logic can get really complex, right? Math stuff with project finance absolutely gets complex. It's probably at the upper end of complexity in terms of financial modeling, but business models can also get quite complex. When you start talking multi-entity, multi-currency, multi-tax, multi-structure, right? Company and trust. And one of the first things that I had to build at Investec in Sydney, which actually was painful, it took me 3 months to build this model, and the deal itself was 12 months. I don't know what your, and the longest time that your deals go for, but 12 months.
3 years.
To get the deal done. So this was a property deal. It can take a long time for some of these things. I had to do multi-tax, multi-entity, multi-currency. Right? It does get really complex. So, but you've got to start at the basics. Very few people know how to do that, but the value of that is huge. There's few professional modelers out there, but the demands is still great. There's still a huge gap in people doing planning and forecasting versus modeling. Major government, major corporates, ASX listed companies or JSE listed companies or JSX, governments still use investment banks and professional firms for their financial modeling. That's not going away. Everyone says, oh, Excel's dead. If you type in Excel is dead into your Google, I come up number 1. Because I went into battle with someone in the UK about this topic. And he said Excel's dead, and I said, not on your life. I said, it's impossible. I said, if Excel is dead, then bridges are not going to get built. Things are not going to happen. Companies are not going to merge. People are not going to understand valuation. These are major fibers of our society that just are not going to get done. So Excel's not going away. He was obviously talking more about analytics and Excel being used for analytics. And I said to him, yes, there's better tools than Excel for some of that, particularly when the data is very large. There's not one single project or infrastructure finance deal that's not done without a financial model. Right, Matt? Yeah? Spot on, right? So you can't go and build a bridge without an Excel model. Strategic decision making and advice is still high in demand, right? The big 4 accounting firms, as bad as they are in audit, their biggest growth of their partners are in advisory and consulting. Make no mistake. And out of that, guess where their biggest growth is? Analytics, right? Massively. At KPMG, the analytics team in Melbourne is triple the size of the modeling team. Triple. Right, and that's only growing. Okay. Sorry, it's not all about big data and data analytics, but the reason it is because of all the hype and the marketing, and we don't have the resistance from finance. The key thing about analytics, and let's park machine learning, Python, coding, predictive analytics. The key thing with analytics, it'll give you, at the moment, insight and hindsight, but there's limited foresight. Why I say limited? Because predictive analytics is really lots of data, pattern recognition, coding, and very targeted. So you can do predictive analytics around revenue. You can do predictive analytics around certain expenses if you've got lots of data and lots of patterns. But there is no solution in the world to build a predictive model that's a three-way cash flow model. It doesn't exist. And I can tell you right now, it's not going to exist for at least 10 to 20 years, if at all. Because there's so much coding that's required in that specific niche of predictive analytics, and accounting standards change. What happens then? Guess what? That model is broken. It doesn't work. Growth of data is exponential. 2 years, every 2 years, our data doubles. Do people know that? So the data that's being produced at the moment doubles. If you think of how much data you have in our storage, in our hard drives, it's just incredible what we've got now. The amount of storage I have I have a 64 gig extension card in this phone, plus another 64 in the phone. Right? 128. You thought I have 128 gig in a phone, right? But I run my business on my phone. So suggestions that AI will drive a lot of data analytics, automation. So that's the only thing with analytics and automation. It will definitely be driven. So do people understand the difference between descriptive, predictive analytics, apart from yourself? So analytics, everyone uses the word analytics and big data. There's different aspects to that. So descriptive is analytics used to describe what has happened, right? Predictive is saying this is what might happen, right? Given this data trend, this is what might happen. Prescriptive is actually saying it advises you to do certain things based on that data, based on the trends, based on all that information. You should do X, Y, and Z. Now, for those that don't know, predictive analytics was actually already being used, and prescriptive, less so prescriptive, but more predictive analytics was being used by underwater submarines. They were using it to predict where the torpedoes were going to hit, taking into account currents. That's been around for a long time in the Army. The Army's been innovating a lot of stuff. Wi-Fi was invented in the Army. And the issue was, and why the human was still needed in that in that analysis, is because the machine would come up and say, the torpedo's going to go there. And whatever you call the person that pushes the button on the torpedo, it says, no, that's not going to happen. And they go look at the data, and they realize there's an anomaly in the data, because that, as a result of that anomaly, which was a freak storm or a freak current, which resulted in the data being skewed, and that wasn't going to happen for the next 30 years, it needed to be adjusted another way. So there is a role for us, we're just not crunching all the numbers. So Python, R, neural networks, these are all coding languages and coding methodologies around how some of this stuff works. Why I disrupted my own role? Smart, suicide, crazy. I went from 3 days a week to 3 days a month. 75% automation. And the reason I did that was because I was running my own business at the same time as taking on a CFO role. I left big corporate, joined the gig economy, started my own business. I'm an accountant by birth, I guess, almost. Well, I don't like to be called an accountant, but I was conservative. So I didn't want to go and open up my business and not have any income coming. So I decided to do both. But very soon I realized that I can't do both, and the demand for financial modeling exceeded my expectations, and I had to automate. I had to automate my role. So what did I do? I used a combination of Medano and VBA, which is a form of weak AI, they call it, to automate stuff that I produced, which would take me a day, 2 days, 3 days to do. Actually took me, in some cases, no time, because someone else was pushing a button and it arrived in my inbox. Augmented AI, chatbots, robo-advisors, machine learning, cognitive computing, natural languaging. This is coming. All of these aspects are coming. Right now already, there's a package that I need to send from Australia, and I'm having a chat with the bot with Australian Post to try and work out where it is and all the rest. It's here. However, there's constraints around AI, right? Operations, regulations, budgets, and resources, right? Probably your biggest. So PwC did a survey in the 2016 around decision making, and those are the key constraints as to why we're not there yet. The technology is here. It can be implemented tomorrow, but those sorts of things will stop it. Particularly regulation as well, and definitely resources and budgets. Right now, some of the stuff is expensive. Machines won't take over yet, but there'll be a gradual replacement of certain things that are rudimentary, mundane, that certainly can be done by machines. Okay, so this is a bit of basic visualization interaction. We're just going to talk through if you have a task that you're doing, number of tasks a month, average time it takes, how much effort. So let's say you have, not 50 tasks, but you have 130 tasks. Average time that it takes you to complete the task, let's say you're really slow and you're doing copying and pasting. And let's say the degree of repeatability of that task is very high, right? So now I've just dynamically changed that visual in front of you to look at what the output is. It's 649 work hours that are going to be disrupted. So straight away, without showing you Excel, and Excel's here in the background, that's the logic, nice and simple. 649 is the 649 there. If I go back and I say, actually my role is really complex, so 6% of it's going to be automated. And I don't do nearly as much work because I'll have a lot of coffees, and so I'm going to take that down. It's only 11.9 hours. Look what happens to Excel. It's now 11.9. So what's happening is this technology called Modeler, which I'm presenting on, is changing Excel in the background as the engine. Okay, so we're towards the end now. What I want to show you is a quick video of what that might look like in a real life scenario. If you wanted to advise a professional speaker on how do they maximize their break-even position and what they should be doing, this is something that you might want to create. So we're changing the different fixed cost drivers, how many staff we have directly. Let's go to change our variable costs. So for every keynotes we do, we're going to do some travel, accommodation, do one-day seminars and consulting in-house. And as that's changing, at the bottom, the gross profit and everything else is changing. Now we want to reach break-even. I don't want to do a goal seek. I'd rather do this. What's a product mix of what sort of events I'm going to run? Look at my profit, my sales, my variable cost contribution, and my break-even point. Now picture that being done in Excel. Picture you explaining that logic in Excel. Right? Excel's still in the background, but much easier. How are we going for time, Matt? Probably gone a bit over. Okay, so there's one last thing I just want to discuss. This is called visual influencing, right? Because influencing visually is far more appealing, engaging. How did that feel?
Amazing. Blew my mind.
Yeah. So now you start sort of feeling like you're on a roller coaster ride. When we're talking about finance, so the engagement level goes up, your value as a professional goes up, and you look like a rock star, right? So that's why it's so important to embrace, because without that model behind it, you can't do any of this stuff. But imagine doing this on your phone, right? Imagine doing this on your phone. Matt, do you want to? So if you're using the Wi-Fi, please jump off now. So imagine if you had, you got it? So imagine if so Matthew's, going to walk around with his phone and we're going to have a conversation. So Matthew, you look after, you just joined our conversation. So behind this sits an Excel model, and Matthew's in charge of pricing and volume. So he's in the pricing department, and obviously price will drive volume. And we're gonna, can I get a volunteer from the audience? Sorry, your name is? Rob. So Rob's in charge of the ops or costing division, right? And I'm the CFO. So we're gonna have a conversation around the strategy, and what we're going to do, this $3.2 million valuation on the bottom right-hand side, we need to get it up. Right, so we need to get that valuation up because we need to do an IPO for this business. And we've got our input levers, in grey, and we obviously want our endpoint valuation to go up. Matt, the price in 2023, $1.80, and 2022 seems a bit low. What do you think is head of pricing it should be?
Put it up to 3.
All right, so you've changed that on your phone. So you've gone from, but it looks almost suspicious. 2022 is $2.20, almost like a typo. I think maybe that should go up. Do you think, surely the pricing department can, I don't know what you guys are doing, but you've gone from $4.10 down to $2.20. I know you're trying to drive demand, but I can't really see the volume curve's a bit flat. Nice. Okay. So you want to pass the phone. So you're going to look after costing, right? So obviously we're going to have competition in the sector. So if you just
give you work emails while
sorry, it's an R&B phone. So you've got, you can't read emails. So base cost, we've got escalation as well. So base cost, so Matt's pushed us up to $5.8 million valuation. But he's unrealistic. You can't really increase price without increasing costs. How are we going to get more people to buy our products at a higher price? Right? Marketing. So we have to spend some money. So I'm going to have a go at. So touch the chart. Just touch. There you go. Oh, that's fine. You smashed. No, you haven't done too much on the valuation. That's still a spike in 2021. We've got a big price increase towards the back end of the curve, 20, 23, 24. So you probably need to increase price rather than the other parts. That's it.
There we go. So I have to zoom in.
Nice. They're right.
Sorry,
Okay. And by the way, I don't know if you know, we're in a recession. So annual escalations, these are real costs. We've got to do nominal. Matt, come on, you're the banker. Escalation, CPI, let's take those 5.7% as backwards, and our valuation will okay, Matt, don't worry, I'll do it. Okay.
I'm just putting in South Africa CPI.
Right, I've got a negative 5%, right? So we're at $5.2 million valuation. But Matt's going to convince me that our discount rate is too low. Because really, this is a high-risk business. But guess what? Our multiplier, based on recent IPOs, we could easily get 9 times EBITDA. So now our valuation is 3.1. The discount rate smashed it. Maybe that's too high. So we go down. Right? Okay, so now all of a sudden we're having an interactive, collaborative conversation with visual influencing, all connected. 3 people. Imagine doing that in an Excel file. You can't. It's not possible. Okay, so that's the sort of technology innovation that's heading our way. Just quickly on the Financial Modelling Institute. So if you've now convinced yourself you might want to learn financial modelling, there's 3 levels, just like the CFA. Advanced Financial Modeler is the first level, Chartered Financial Modeler, and Master Financial Modeler. So again, over time, as financial modeling grows and the demand for it grows, organizations who don't know how to assess financial modeling skills, and most don't, I know that because I try to hire people and the recruiters don't know how to test it, no one knows how to test it. People think good Excel is financial modeling, it's not. Yes, it's a sizable portion of financial modeling skills, but it's certainly not the only thing, particularly when it comes to graphs and translating and communicating. This is going to be the go-to standard. This is going to be, okay, what level are you? Level 1, 2, or 3. It's run twice a year. October, they just had their exam recently. There's the next one in April next year. I'm a trainer. I train people all over the world online. I'm preparing for this course. So The accreditation is independent, but it's going to be the gold standard, as you can see, in financial modelling over time. Alrighty, best part at the end, questions and answers.
Where the institute, is it Australian based or?
It's global. So the founders of the FMI, there's two, Vrimero, the guys who created Modeloff, the part owners, and then there's the other partnership is from the company in Toronto, Canada. So they're sort of owned. I don't know officially where the registration of the company is, but it's sort of between the Marquee Group, who are financial modelling consultants and trainers, and the Modeloff guys joined up because they saw when they built the competition that there's this huge gap, there's a skills gap. They made modelling cool. Now they want to make modelling actually really cool and actually put a certification against it, because every other training course that you do, if you do it, you go in and you get it, and even the one that I do, I give you an attendance certificate. They all do. This is not that. This is a proper exam. You sit down and you build a 3A model from scratch in 4 hours. And you get marked on that model. And based on that, you get your certification. You don't get the certification sitting in a room for 3 days. Or 2 days, or 1 day.
Where does quantum computing take this all?
Where does quantum computing take us all? Just means we can crunch stuff quicker, more data. So now we're doubling our data. Some of the stuff we can't even use. Part of the challenges with Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, you heard about people mining Bitcoin. Why do they not mine it? Because the algorithms to solve the chains in the blockchain are so complex that the computing power that's needed, they needed to borrow other people's computing power to solve it. So quantum computing is going to enable things like cryptocurrencies and others, but wait until the government put their foot down and others about changing that, and obviously the banks. But it's going to make everything else that we do exponentially quicker.
But it doesn't fundamentally change the Excels that you're going to actually use, or will it?
Well, I don't see quantum computing building a 3-way model by itself. Quantum computing is just a form of processing. It's just quicker processing than what we have today. And so yeah, it's awesome. I'm happy because my Excel occasionally hangs on my big models, and I'm like, I wish I had a quantum computer. So yeah, it's only going to enhance and improve what we've got, as opposed to disrupt or change that. It's sort of like putting in nitrous into your car. It's still dangerous though. Don't know how to drive properly. Any other questions?
Is the financial modeling done from the perspective of financial accounting? I think my question is, does it accommodate econometrics?
Absolutely. So models that I've built, so I built a model at Telstra. I wouldn't even call it a model. It used Excel. It probably shouldn't have used Excel. They didn't have a system. They wanted to connect data together. So we used it. You build systems and processes in Excel. You can do anything. I built a snakes and ladders game with an automation roll dice, and you can see how the game plays out and who the winners and losers are. In fact, there's a Modeloff question. So to answer your question, actually go onto the Modeloff website, go to past questions, and you'll be amazed at what has been built in Excel. So financial modeling is not just about finance. It's about decision making. That's the key. Financial modeling, someone said to me, what is my definition of financial modeling? It enables decision making, much more than just finance. It's largely used in finance and accounting, but it's the art of problem solving in Excel is way bigger than just finance. There are people in marketing that do it all the time. Probably better than some of the people in finance. Certainly engineers use it a lot. Engineering and mining use it a lot. I've got people from Rio Tinto attending my course next week. Any questions? Any other?
The tool similar to Madonna, or is that the only content management system?
Madonna is the leader at the moment in CMS for Excel, and it's got a steep learning curve. It's hugely powerful, but like everything else, you've got to put time into them. At the moment, there isn't. Madonna Madonna's an interesting one because it was built off the back of the financial modeling standards called the Best Practice Spreadsheet Modeling Standards, BPSMS. BPM was the consulting firm that sort of built, when I started my career in financial modeling and I built models at Investec, I was using the old BPM toolbox, which has been around for a decade. So Madonna's predecessor has actually been around for over a decade already. But it wasn't automated, it didn't allow content sharing, but it did allow some form of automation in terms of building table of contents, error checks and other bits and pieces. But no, at the moment it's the only one. But not for it's going to happen. It's like everything. Uber was the first. Now you've got 3 or 4 other, similar ride-sharing related technologies. But it's hard. It's not an easy solve. Madonna's, they've been building that for a decade. I don't think they've got it quite right yet, but it's good. But it's got a very steep learning curve.
Do you think Google Sheets is going to get to?
Well, I love that question. No. But
Not
yeah.
from a financial modeling point, but collaboration.
So I'll change my answer. Yes. So depends. This is the problem with Excel, right? There's certain things that Excel should be used for, and there's certain things that Excel should not be used for. Excel should not be used for data capture. Excel's not the greatest thing for collaboration. I'm running 3 events. I've got 2 more events. I have my assistant in the Philippines, and guess what? We're using a Google Sheet because I can see live, I can change, she can change, we can collaborate, I can share links on it. Google Sheets is awesome.
A certain level of data you could use as
But basic. You can't do VBA. It doesn't recognize certain drop-down boxes and hyperlinks. There's other issues with certain things. Like it's not, and some of the formulas are not as. It's got a lot of the basics, but that's not Google's. Google's going after the masses. They're going after the average Joe So who uses Excel, typing Excel as a data capture, those that use Excel as a CRM system to capture client information.
I just find it a lot easier to use the scripting in Google because it's just constantly connected, it runs automatically, you can connect it to a multitude of applications, whereas Excel it needs to be open to be running and it's tedious. But
Yeah,
it has its uses.
Again, it's just, well, what's your view?
No, I agree fully. It all comes down to what are you trying to do, and I think the Google Sheets, I've enjoyed it as well. I do think Microsoft, they're almost trying to get there, but just logic says it's not. Google's got what they're good at what they do.
Yes.
But I still find that the new versions of Excel are becoming, they're definitely going horses for courses. Excel is now, to me, has gone one way. Google Sheets is definitely going to have a role. I think Microsoft are going to have to somehow speak to Google and try and get it to link up. Because can you imagine an Excel spreadsheet that talks properly to Google Sheets? I mean, there's some genuine power there.
But Microsoft has its own online
Equivalent.
They're very watered down.
It's very watered down. And there's almost no point in using that versus Google Sheets. Because you can take a Google Sheet, you can save it down as an Excel file, and away you go. Yes, you're going to have some formatting issues, but again, it becomes, to David's point, it depends on what you're using.
But I think, that's Lance's main point for me would be Excel's got its use. And we actually discussed it yesterday. There's sometimes when we tell a client, listen, you must not use Excel, but I'll do it for you, but almost in the contract it says, this is a temporary solution and you will not be using it in 10 years' time.
This is a POC, not to be used
in
the future. And guess what? It becomes.
So I must admit, I grew up on my career background with VBA. If there was a big data version of Excel, something that could handle millions of records in crunch with VBA, because VBA runs at like 1,000 times slower than most processing languages. But in terms of flexibility and everything else, it would be one of the most ferocious programming languages in even the analytics space. But because of flexibility and what you can do with it, that's the only hindrance on my part with Excel. But from that side, even as a data scientist, I revert to Excel all the time for a lot of simpler automation exercises.
And I think, that's exactly, you're talking about Excel is dead. To me, I see Excel as the equivalent of a piece of paper and pen. It's where sometimes you doodle. And that's where you come up with your great ideas.
Yes.
The problem is when you're doodling, it's just a bit hard. You should actually delete it and start again and build it properly, but kind of built this, so you just attach, and that's where it becomes messy. But I definitely think it can't go away. If you're creative financially, so artists do it with paint, financial
There's people that
creativity.
paint in Excel.
Yeah, have you seen it?
Yes, awesome. There's someone that recently, I think was on Twitter, someone did a Melbourne skyline in an Excel sheet, and the way they did it was with the word Melbourne. So in the Excel sheet, they actually wrote Melbourne, and they did the entire skyline with Excel and the word Melbourne. That's it.
But it is the future. The only way to think through a problem from a financial point of view, it has to touch Excel. It has to.
Yeah, agreed. So the question at the back.
Yes, so your auditability of your, because from Excel spreadsheets, being in the accountant side, when you see an Excel spreadsheet, your hair stands on end, especially from
I don't have much, so I'm lucky.
But now, as far as like modeling and things, was one of the things is you prepare a model, you send it out to say this is our model, and now with an Excel spreadsheet, 2 managers over, they change your model and update something, and you have no audit traceability or anything on it. On your modeling program, what do you
Absolutely. So both Adrian and I spoke about this as well around, there are actually model audit tools that I use in my business and all the accounting firms use, which actually compare 2 models and tell you on a cell by cell basis what's changed.
All right. Who has changed it?
Well, it comes back to a Google Sheets, right? So it's a collaboration. So Excel doesn't have that. They won't tell you. There are other solutions that sit on top of Excel, like Venus Solutions and other database programs which actually do track changes. But you've got to have something else on top of it. But you definitely, Medana has inbuilt auditing capability. Also, what Medana does is it locks down the file. So I can send it to anyone, and the only thing they can change is the assumption. That's it. They can't change the logic unless I allow them to. Unless I release it out of it and I make it a normal Excel file. But they actually can't change the logic. It's locked down.
But I think getting to your point, it is the pro of flexibility is the con of
Collaboration.
The auditability, and it can go wrong. And unfortunately, if you look at you can look at the website, all the problems that have come about, it's that exact problem. It was perfect when it was sent out, and then I just wanted to try this one thing, and that one thing just changed something, and we didn't expect it. So, unfortunately, I think it's a known constraint. But hopefully, when you build, you should build knowing. When I teach, I say you must assume the user is going to whatever rule you put there. Please don't insert lines. I promise you they're going to insert. You must need to build with that in mind. But it is a constraint.
See, that's how when I build Excel models, the Excel has got a function where you can lock down everything except for 1 or 2 cells, and the guys can't do anything except change what's in those cells.
Correct.
And the only thing they can change in those cells is to enter a number and change the number.
I assume you're using data validation as well.
Yeah, look, I'm a software developer. So yeah, I'm what I would term an expert Excel user.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, so for you, those problems are mitigated quite quickly.
Yeah.
Whereas for most people, it's not. Most people don't even know what data validation is. So
That's a fair point.
I think we've run a bit over, Matthew. There's still lots of great biltong and drivers and
Yeah, so
issues.
definitely if you have any more questions, please stick around outside. So I think that was awesome. Thanks so much, Lance, for showing us what the future is. It certainly makes me very excited, and I think it just takes one person to adopt it. I think the same was true for Uber. If nobody adopted it, it would just be this tool out there, and people would be thinking, geez, that's so crazy, I'm never going to get in a stranger's car. But obviously now everybody uses it, and I think it's going to be the same thing here. It'll be a snowball effect. So yeah, thanks so much for presenting tonight. It was really awesome. Thanks everyone for coming. Thanks to Audit Excel and Adrian for sponsoring the meetup. And feel free to stick around and have some snacks and a drink.
Thank you. Cheers.
Mario.
I'll actually just